Shares of Netflix surging today, just about 8.5% on a stellar earnings report in which the streaming giant added more than 7 million subscribers. Up big time, more than twice that this year. The headline, however, remains CEO Reed Hastings stepping down as co-CEO. Joining us now is Chmielewski, Reuters U.S. entertainment business correspondent and co-author of Binge Times. Nice to see you. So let's talk about this Reed Hastings departure. Going to stay on as chairman. Greg Peters, COO, will join Sarandos as co-CEO. What do you make of the transition and how they handled it?
Well, I think it's gotten rather enthusiastic response from the investment community. So Netflix has been planning for this for a decade or so, they say. And 2.5 years ago, Ted Sarandos, who has long been the content chief at Netflix, was elevated to a new role of co-CEO. And his now co-CEO, Greg Peters, was elevated to a chief operating role like 2.5 years ago. So these executives have been working together for 2.5 years. There doesn't appear to be any sort of conflict. So this transition translated to the street as being a really smooth transition from the company's co-founder to executives who've been working together, for 15 years and in this leadership role for the last 2.5. So it wasn't a particularly jarring transition. It seems, in fact, more effortless than some of their media peers here in Hollywood.
Don, I think maybe the question here is whether or not this is going to change the culture at all, because when it comes to Netflix's culture, it's really been a standout among Silicon Valley. A 125-page slide deck that describes its culture has been downloaded 17 million times. So it really just shows the interest in Netflix's culture. Are you expecting that to change at all?
So, that was a key question that we were examining. Like, as you know, Reed Hastings credits this company's very distinct culture. It has a performance culture. It invests a lot of autonomy in its executives, and Reed credits this sort of independence that it affords these high performing executives who come to the company with the company's success. But in interviews yesterday with Jessica Ehrlich during Netflix's earnings video, the new co-CEOs sought to assure the street that nothing will change, that they will attempt to adhere to the culture that Reed Hastings created and that they've worked within for well more than a decade. So
it's interesting.
They say no changes ahead, which perhaps explains how the market is reacting.
And no changes in terms of the co-CEO role, which you really don't see anyone else in that space do. Is that, obviously content is king, but is that part of the special sauce there at Netflix? Why does it work so well for them?
So it's really interesting. I mean, as you know, the history of co-CEOs is not always a stellar one. In the tech world, Oracle, for example, had co-CEOs not that long ago. Ditto for Salesforce.com, and it doesn't always work out. In this case, you have two executives with clearly delineated roles. You have Ted Sarandos, who is the architect of Netflix's drive into original content, and you have Greg Peters, who has more of a technical orientation, who is credited with helping Netflix rather quickly launch an ad-supported version of its service. He's behind the initiative. Netflix's initiative to get into games. So he has a much more technical orientation, and these two are seen as having complementary skills.
Don, from your coverage of Reed Hastings, everything you know about him, obviously extremely invested in Netflix, given that he's the co-founder, been with the company since the start, over 20 years. Now that he's chairman, I guess, how much do you really see him stepping aside versus his involvement with the company still?
Well, Reed Hastings in his message to investors was explicit in saying that he's not going anywhere. He will remain attentive to the company that he helped found, that he will be paying careful attention to the company's stock price, and will no doubt play a role in helping inform the company's direction for some time to come. He is handing over the reins of day-to-day operation to two trusted deputies who have already demonstrated their ability to lead the company.
Netflix has been mentioned in about a handful of names that could potentially acquire WWE, which makes sense when you compare the market cap is basically about 4 seasons of NFL rights. Could they be in that conversation, or will 2023 for Netflix be defined by what, do you think?
So I think Ted Sarandos has actually addressed the question about sports very directly, and I believe it was during a UBS conference fairly recently. So Ted is saying, look, I'm not going to say we'll never get into sports content. Indeed, Netflix has had some success with like dramatic programming built around sports, like its Formula One series was very successful and actually spurred interest in the racing sport. But Ted has said we don't need to have sports rights to continue to grow our business, at least not in the near term. And he's also said that those rights are expensive compared with the cost of other sorts of content that attract subscribers. So,
but I'm not talking about sports rights.
At least recently, Ted has signaled they're not in the sports not in the bidding for sports rights.
But one, WWE is not a sport. I think it's more of an entertainment, and this isn't sports rights. This is an acquisition, really.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't want to speculate about deals that they haven't done. That gets me in trouble with my editors.
Certainly, we'll see what Netflix does. All right, Don Chmielewski, thank you so much for joining us.